thoughts, questions on our 3 verses this morning, and it is finished. Timothy.
I don't have like a great insight, but the hyssop branch, there's some connection there with the blood of the lamb on the doorposts from Exodus, right?
Well, and Psalm 51. Yes. John tells us that it's a hyssop branch, and is it a hyssop branch in Exodus? I know it's a hyssop branch in Psalm 51. Cleanse me with hyssop, and I shall be clean.
I looked it up. It's Exodus 12:21.
So you do have an insight. Don't be so down on yourself, Timothy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not asking. It's a cool connection. I mean, there's some continuation there with Christ being the lamb. I mean,
Absolutely. And then you got some liberal scholars, hyssop branches can't do it. Well, it depends what you mean by branch. There's thick enough parts of hyssop branches that, yes, you can do that. Sometimes when you're reading commentaries, you just got to read stupid people. There's some people you have to be well educated to be this dumb, you know. And no, there's a whole discussion. Could a hyssop branch actually bear the weight of a sponge? And then you see photos, and people have to prove it. It's like, okay, we're arguing. Okay. All right, fair enough. But yes. And again, it's the type of detail that suggests an eyewitness, which is another point, little things like that, and little connections between, I had not made the connection with the blood of the Passover lamb. That's pretty cool. I'd only made the connection with Psalm 51, but that's good. That's good. Who you got next, Don? Serena? Oh, Serena's got a tag on that. Okay. Here we go.
I was just looking up, and it looks like it's used a lot in the priestly ministry in the Old Testament too.
Yeah, it's associated with the sprinkling of blood and the priestly service. Yeah. Jeremy.
I have brought this up before, so it must be something that I think about, but the prophecies in the Old Testament that are fulfilled by Christ or by, whatever that comes later on, it seems like there are 2 basic kinds of those prophecies. One that happens, like you said, the soldiers who were dividing his garments, they did that not intentionally, but right. And then there's the ones that Jesus did, riding in on a donkey, saying he was thirsty, things like that. Right. And I've had a little bit of a hard time being overly impressed with the I am thirsty ones.
Sure.
Because to me, prophecy, when I look at the Old Testament prophecies fulfilled in the New Testament that are not done intentionally, I think, wow, what an amazing plan God has. And when they happen intentionally, riding in on the donkey, well, he just did that because he knew it was in the Old Testament. That's not as impressive.
Right.
But it struck me today that maybe those kinds of intentional fulfillments of Old Testament prophecy are more along the lines of him saying, I'm Messiah, you guys. You've known about this for forever, and it's just another way of him claiming who he was, his deity.
No, I think you're exactly right. Not all prophecies are, that's amazing you predicted it. There are those. The piercing, they will look on me whom they've pierced, hundreds of years before crucifixion is invented. That's remarkable. The naming of Cyrus by Isaiah is the most jaw-dropping. It can give the name of the guy. And then there are some prophecies that are vaguer. There will be a king in the north and he shall come. And you're like, okay. And you're right. The donkeys, from that vantage point, the least impressive, because we're told Jesus did it to fulfill what was written. Hey, there's a prophecy, there's a king to come on a donkey, get me a donkey. That is not impressive in regards to how did you predict that? But there are aspects of you'll know him this way, he'll be identified this way, these things have to happen, that also is being taken up in prophecy. And even here, one of the sufferings of David's greater son will be that he will be offered sour wine for his thirst. That hasn't happened yet. It needs to happen. So I'm going to say I thirst to make it happen. And it's less, you're right, in one sense, Jesus is setting it up. It's there more, look at his commitment to keep God's word, look at his commitment to fulfill the plan. It's not impressive on, how did David predict that? Right. from that vantage point, it's unimpressive. It's completely impressive in regards to this is the pattern that was set out. This is the pattern that was fulfilled. And the one who fulfills it is intentionally embracing it all. So the part that I'm marveling at is, I know I'd be tempted to think the heaviest lifting, bearing God's wrath for sin, has been done. The sinless life, done. It's all done. There's one last little detail. 99.9% is good enough. Nope. Like that to me is the jaw drop. Wow, faithfulness of Christ. And yeah, his commitment to those things. I think that's what we're to be marveling at, not, as you pointed out, how did David get that one right? Yeah. That's not what all prophecy is doing. No, you're absolutely right.
And it's also, it just kind of brings more into question, too, that people nowadays who claim that Jesus never claimed to be Messiah or God or whatever, and it's like there's hundreds of examples of him doing exactly that.
Well, the clearest one for anyone who is remotely biblically literate is the end of John 8, where Jesus says to a bunch of Jews, before Abraham was, I am. Like, that's the name God reveals himself at the burning bush to Moses. Tell them I am sent you. And then in case we miss the point, they pick up stones to kill him for blasphemy. Like, I wonder what they understood him to be saying. They understood him to be committing blasphemy. So for anyone who's like, Jesus never said he was God, okay. Like, if you type into your search engine, open quote, I am God, you will not get any hits of Jesus saying those exact words. Very clever. You know, does Jesus indicate he's God? Yes, repeatedly. But yes, you'll never find the actual words, I am God, on Jesus' lips. You want a cookie? Like, very, very impressed. Anyway, yes, sorry. Okay, Owen. Oh, no, Don. Don, then Owen.
Well, just to add on to that, the volume of prophecies that were fulfilled.
Yeah.
You know, the sheer number of them. You know, somebody who was trying, you know, I'll look up and I'll be Jesus. I'll be the Messiah. He wouldn't have, probably would have missed a few.
Right.
But Jesus didn't miss any.
Well, and the one that the fulfilled prophecy that the New Testament hangs everything on is destroy this temple and in 3 days I'll raise it. And that one can't be faked. I'm going to rise from the dead. And so, sure, not all prophecies are equally impressive. That one is supremely impressive, right? And that's like you go through the book of Acts, they're just proclaiming the resurrection. I mean, I remember as a new believer, I was like, I think this way. Surely there's going to be a discernible pattern to how the gospel is preached in Acts. So I'm going to take every gospel proclamation, there's about 8 of them in the book of Acts, and I'm going to diagram them, and I'm going to get my little 5 bullet point outline of the way the gospel is presented in Acts. Try that sometime. You'll be frustrated. There's really very little pattern. The resurrection shows up everywhere. Sometimes they leave off other things. The resurrection is always there. And what they're saying is, pay attention, God raised this man from the dead. God furnished proof. He's going to judge the living and the dead by one man, Jesus. And this he furnished proof to by raising him from the dead. He was raised from the dead. We're witnesses. He was that is the claim on which they're basing, take us seriously, pay heed to us, listen to us. God raised a man from the dead. And Jesus predicting that in all the Gospels repeatedly. The Old Testament predicting that. That one prediction should have the wow factor of, okay, only God can do that. Someone can ride a donkey, and picking where you're born is a little more tricky, but, you know. But admittedly, they're not all equally jaw-dropping along that axis of, wow, how did you nail that one? Okay. Who's Owen?
Yeah, so I had a question about the last verse, and he bowed his head and gave up his spirit.
Yeah.
So it seems to say that he can, like he was in control of giving up his own spirit.
Yes.
So what exactly does that mean? Like he chose to just die then? Is that what that means?
Yes. Jesus willingly died. So die and not die. There's a whole bunch of passages in Hebrews that I have in the notes that we never looked at that we can look at. But the author of Hebrews can say Jesus had an indestructible life. So in one sense, Jesus doesn't die. Jesus' spirit changes location. He goes to the Father. But Jesus, as we view, the body and soul joined together dies. The God-man Jesus dies. Jesus' body is lifeless on the cross. So we view death as the separation of the spirit from the body. Jesus initiates and causes that separation to happen. We call that death. He died. Yes. But the key point is he gave it up. He was holding on to his spirit. You and I don't have that power. Someone can take your life. Someone can take my life. Jesus insists, no one takes my life from me. I give it up. I lay it down. And so even the wording of John highlights that. He held on until everything was done. And then as soon as the last bit's done, he's no masochist. He doesn't want to suffer a jot or tittle more than he needs to. He'll make sure none of what he's supposed to do escapes him. And as soon as he took the sour wine, he lowered his head and he handed over his spirit. Luke tells us he also said, Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. And perhaps he said that as he laid his head down. But John's point is the control. Yeah, he surrendered his spirit. Is that...
Yeah, it does. So if he decided not to do that, I know you don't like hypotheticals, but if he decided not to do that, like that, the crucifixion didn't kill him, but he decided to give up his spirit. That was entirely, like when the work was finished, he decided to do that.
In the same way that he didn't have to go with them. So like at the very beginning of the arrest, Jesus gives us this sovereign demonstration. So 300 soldiers show up, a cohort, whatever you want to make that to be. It could be more, but it's at least 300 Roman soldiers show up to arrest Jesus. And in John 18, he says, who have you come for? Jesus of Nazareth, I am he, or I am. And they fall flat on their faces, every one of them. So John wants to make it clear, because there are ways you can read, especially some of the more liberal, social, gospel-y. Jesus is this beautiful peacenik. He's this beautiful love people prophet, and he just, the machine, the man, the system came and got him, and it was just this tragic thing that happened. No, Jesus overpowered 300 Roman soldiers and could have walked away. He's going to go with them, and he's going to make it clear he goes with them willingly. He goes with them knowing, and then John he knew everything that was going to happen. So you couldn't argue, well, he went with them, but he didn't know what they were going to do. Now, we've been repeatedly told he knew what was going to happen. He knew what must happen. So at every point, John is highlighting Jesus who's willingly, what he said, I've come to do the work of my Father. My Father's given me work to do. I'm going to do it. And if you want to ask, well, what would have happened if he hadn't have done the work of his Father? I don't know. What would happen if 2 + 2 = 5? I don't know. The point is, it couldn't happen without him willingly doing it. But in the same sense, they couldn't have nailed him to the cross without him willingly letting himself be nailed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Caitlin has a question, and then Dean has a question, and then Zeb has a question. Zeb, I doubt, has a question. Zeb has something to say, more likely. But, okay, Caitlin, what you got?
All right.
He knows I'm right. That's why he's laughing. Okay.
So mine isn't really a question as much as it is I noticed something I never had in your message. Jesus' first miracle was when he turned the water into wine. Yeah. And then he did that out of love to bless the marriage. And then the last thing that the people did to spite him was give him terrible wine. I was I never caught that before, and it just kind of struck me. So. Yeah.
No, that had hit me too, especially the stone jar. He mentioned stone jars in both, in the wedding at Cana and here. That was oh, wait a second, I've seen stone jars in John's gospel before. Oh, yeah. No, it's like I said, I don't know, I don't want to this is deep, but in regards to parallelism, the beginning of his ministry, he freely gives wonderful wine to a wedding, to celebrate a wedding. At the end of his life, the last thing done to him, in mockery, they give him sour wine. I'm thirsty. This will make you more thirsty. You'll want to vomit this out. Yeah, the mockery of that is remarkable. Dean.
Speaking of the sour wine, I always assumed it was part of mockery, but afraid to admit, I doing a little research while you were speaking. And the research showed that it was just something that was available right there, that most likely it was something that it was a cheap drink that the Roman soldiers may have been drinking themselves. What's your take on that?
I don't think so for two reasons. It's a jar. So wine in the Middle East, if you don't put it in a wineskin, over ferments. It's in a jar, not in a wineskin. So what's it going to do? This jar is by where they crucify people. I guess maybe they're offering drinks, but if you go that route, it's possible. That's what it is. If you go that route, then the scripture Jesus is fulfilling has to be Psalm 22:15, where simply he's thirsty. It's just that he's thirsty. I don't think that's the way John sets it up. If instead I'm right that he's fulfilling Psalm 69, which again I'll read the reference to you. And there are some people that think it's just Psalm 22. After all, Psalm 22 was just quoted a few verses earlier. But Psalm 69, verse 20 and 21, reproaches have broken my heart so that I'm in despair. I looked for pity, but there was none, for comforters, but I found none. They gave me poison for food, and for my thirst they gave me sour wine to drink. There's no question in my mind in Psalm 69 that is a mockery. That is a cruel trick. I was hungry, they gave me poison. I was thirsty, they gave me sour wine. I looked for comfort, they gave me none. So if Jesus is fulfilling Psalm 69, then that tells me how to take it. If he's fulfilling Psalm 22 and it's just he's thirsty, then it could be nothing significant in that regard. But I don't think so. No, you're not on.
My only thought was that if it was mocking, they had to intentionally have it on hand, as opposed to if it was something that was just there that the Roman soldiers were drinking as a cheap drink, then it would have been available. Does that make sense?
Yes. It could have been the latter and it got bad. So if it was yesterday's good wine or 2 days ago's good wine, has anyone ever done this? You pick up a soda or a can of something that's far older than you think it is, and you take a sip and it could be simply that. I mean, it could be that this was drinking wine from a few days earlier, and there's a half inch at the bottom of the vessel, and someone dips the sponge into that and gives it to them. From the framing of Psalm 69, if it's Psalm 69, it has to be mockery. And he said this to fulfill. The reason why I don't buy Psalm 22 is Psalm 22 just says, my tongue clings to my mouth. That's true whether he says I thirst or I not. He doesn't need to say I thirst to fulfill that. It's true. And you might argue, well, he needs to let us know it's true. It's not hard to speculate. A man crucified in the Middle East in the blazing sun, is he thirsty? Is his mouth dry? Probably. So it seems a stretch to suggest all he's fulfilling is letting us know that he's thirsty. It's possible. I'll admit it. If it's 69, which has been cited 2 other times in John's gospel, 69 makes it clear this is mockery. This is cruel treatment. So then the possibility, could this just be something they're all drinking, would say, no, it can't be that. It can't be like a whiskey sour or something. No, there are bitter drinks people like. I don't think that can, if it's 69, it can't be that. It has to be some unexpected cruelty. Zeb, then James, then Carol.
I appreciated the connection of the when he bowed his head, the connection to laying his head, which kind of seems like it connects back, given that this is in preparation on Friday, the day of preparation, preparing for the Sabbath, the day of rest, circling back to Genesis. Thus, Genesis 2:1, it says, "Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day, God finished his work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all the work that he had done." Christ didn't
Finishes
just
his work.
Yeah, he finished his work.
I like it. That'll preach. James. Then Carol.
When Jesus instituted the Lord's Supper in Matthew 26:29, he said, "I tell you, I will not drink again of this fruit of the vine until the day that I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom." So I was wondering, how does that reconcile with getting the sour wine and drinking it on the cross?
I think that's another reason to not think that the sour wine is a type of refreshing drink. we can recognize that vinegar and wine are in some senses the same thing, but we don't. If I said I'm not going to drink any more wine, and you found out I used a vinaigrette dressing on my salad, you might call me a liar, but you probably would get that I mean different things. If Jesus is referencing at a meal, a celebratory meal, feasting wine, we're having a lamb, and we're having the Passover meal, and I will not drink wine at a feast with you until I drink it in the kingdom. The notion of feasting in the kingdom making perfect sense. Jesus drinking sour wine that's bitter, that's not anything refreshing, I don't think would contradict that. But that would further demand the sour wine and the wine that you'd eat at a meal are very different things, not different types of thing, the same thing, if that makes any sense. So,
and Jesus didn't ask for wine, he just asked for a drink. And then that makes sense that the wine that he's talking about in Matthew 26 would be based on having a feast versus just, right. Yep, makes sense.
No, but this is closer to vinegar. So, yeah. Like this, there's a separate Greek word. It's not like wine that is sour. It's the sour wine word. Which is different than Jesus saying, I'm not going to drink wine. It's part of it. So, okay. Jake?
This is a change from the wine. So if anyone had another wine thing, ask now.
Carol was next in line, Jake. Sorry. Then you're up next, Jake. Okay, Carol, hit it.
Yeah, I'm not related to the wine.
Oh, then give it back to. Sorry. Sorry.
Back to he gave up his spirit.
Yeah.
No one took his life from him.
Yeah.
He gave it up at that moment, and I don't want to get into your sermon for next week, but you see the Jews are so religious they couldn't have these guys hanging on the cross on the Passover. So they got Pilate to send the soldiers in to break their legs to be sure they were dead, which they did. Except they came to Jesus first, and he was already dead.
Right.
Now that's an interesting thing. Why is he already dead, and those other guys are still kicking there?
Are they hardier than Jesus?
What's that?
Are they hardier than Jesus?
No,
he gave up his spirit.
He gave up his spirit.
I say that rhetorically. No, he gave up his spirit.
Yeah.
They don't have the power to go. If they could give up their spirit, I bet you they would.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's the prophecy again. I'm sure you're going to talk about next week. Psalm 34, not a bone was broken, quoted right there in John. That's fantastic.
No, and again, this gets back to with some of the liberal commentators. I mean, I don't mean politically liberal. I mean religiously. There's all this, he shouldn't be dead yet. The text tells you what happened. If you pay attention to the text, it's no surprise. But this is where the whole swoon theory that was popular came in. I mean, after all, they were surprised he was dead. Yeah, fair enough. And we're told what happened. He gave up his spirit. Like, if you just take the text on its own merits, the narrator tells you why this unusual thing happened. You're absolutely right. They are surprised. We know why. I mean, there's a certain amount of, you got to be smart to be that dumb. That goes on. No, seriously. There's all this stuff about, no, he must have only appeared dead and he just fainted and then he's revived in the cool air of the tomb and that accounts for the resurrection. No, it doesn't. Okay, now you can go, Jake.
Could you comment on sort of today's text in relation to 1 Peter 3:19?
Yes. Okay. Yes. Let's go to 1 Peter 3:19. Okay. Okay. 1 Peter 3:19. Let's start in 18. For Christ also suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the Spirit, in which he went and proclaimed the spirits in prison, because they formerly did not obey when God's patience waited in the days of Noah while the ark was being prepared. So because of that text, you've got some versions of the Apostles' Creed. There's variations of the Apostles' Creed, but there's some versions of the Apostles' Creed that he suffered, was buried, went into hell. And there's some strains of doctrine. There are people who try to suggest Jesus continues to go to hell and suffer in hell. And my point is, no, he doesn't. his prayer in John 17 makes it clear the next place he goes is to the Father's presence, to be with the Father with the glory he had in the beginning. He tells the thief on the cross, today you will be with me in paradise. So Jesus does, at some later point, go to hell, as we would say, not to suffer, but to make an announcement. My guess, I win, would be the announcement. Because again, Greek takes a noun and makes it a verb. I was actually thinking we do that with crucify. What is crucify but crossify? You crossify something. That's exactly the way the Greek works with verbs. So you've got gospel, you can gospelize. You've got teach, you can teachize. You have what? You have Google, you can Google it. Exactly. And so Jesus went to make a proclamation. So my best guess, and granted that reference is somewhat vague, is there are spirits who weren't around on earth when he won. Lest they suffer in the misguided opinion that their side might win. I mean, you can picture like POWs in World War II. Yes, we're captured, but the Allies are going to win. Okay. There might be, lest there be any demons that are having such hope. No, I got a proclamation to make. Every knee is going to bow, every tongue is going to confess, including those that were sent to darkness earlier. I win. So I'm just fighting against the notion that Jesus has more suffering to do. I think the very picture, the wording, if he lay down his head, he's entering into rest.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I just I'd heard people sort of abuse that verse 319. And just thought,
no, I appreciate
further elaboration was
that's
good.
That's what I was trying to get at when I said that as well.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Alex, then Nathan. You guys are getting your steps in today. This is fantastic.
So, a few more thoughts on Jesus' deity and him being in lockstep with the Father's will. Your comment about when he subdues the Roman soldiers, like he could have just walked out at that point if he wanted to. And he had prayed that if it be the Father's will, that the cup would pass from him.
Yeah.
At that point, when he is with the soldiers, he already knows the answer.
Yeah.
Because he willingly went with them.
Right. That's pretty cool. Yeah, if you harmonize the Gospels, Jesus has already prayed, nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. He requests the cup pass. He has to know the answer is no, because he's given supernatural opportunity to walk out of there. And he doesn't take it, he goes with them, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And John, I think, in highlighting Jesus' determination, omits that. No deception is in view. I think even Jesus praying that knows, he knows the plan. Is there any other possible way? It's a way to give words to how much this is unpleasant, how difficult this is, how painful and awful this is. In John, his moment not of hesitation is in chapter 12, when the hour lands. And so in John 12, the Greeks ask for him, and he says, now is the hour. The hour has come. And what shall I say? Father, keep me from this hour? No, but for this purpose I have come. So if there's any hesitation in John's gospel, both happened. I'm not trying to pit them against each other. John highlights that turmoil there, and it's settled there. No, but for this hour I have come into the world. Unless a grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it bears forth much fruit. It bears forth no fruit, but if it dies, it bears forth Can't quote it, look it up. Hold on. House rule, if you can't quote the passage, you look it up. Okay. Jesus answered them, the hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Truly, truly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears forth much fruit. Whoever loves this life loses it. Whoever hates this life in this world will keep it for eternal life. If anyone serves me, he must follow me, and where I am, there my servant will be also. If anyone serves me, my Father will honor him. Now is my soul troubled. And what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour? But for this purpose I have come to this hour. Father, glorify your name. Then a voice came from heaven. I have glorified it, and I will glorify it again. So if there's any if John shows us any moment of indecision or any moment of conflict, there it is. And from then on, he's just resolute. So similar to what you were saying, Carol, about Luke. Starting in Luke 9, Jesus sets his face to Jerusalem. That phrase happens 3 times. And then the rest of the narrative, on his way where? To Jerusalem. The cross is looming in Luke starting in 9. It's not going to show up for 14 more chapters, but it's looming starting in 9. Okay, Nathan.
All right, I must drag us back to the wine here for a minute.
Oh, we're going back to the wine. Fantastic. All right.
As I was listening to this, I think it's entirely possible and logical, knowing what the climate of the Middle East is, that everybody's right, that they had wine. Wine's kind of fickle. It spoils rapidly, especially in that heat.
Without refrigerants.
Exactly.
And pasteurization.
And then at that point, they had this wine sitting there that they'd maybe been drinking and celebrating and whatever that's gone bad. And, they're not going to give this guy they're crucifying good wine. Give him the sour stuff.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense to me.
I think it could go either way.
Sure.
Or both. All of the above. Pretty easily.
Yeah. All my point would be, whatever it is, it's not refreshing. Whatever it is, it's more suffering. It's not.
I didn't mean to give him the good stuff.
This is not a kindness. It's not he gets some little reprieve of grace. In Psalm 69, it's, I looked for mercy, I found none. They broke my heart. For my food, they gave me poison. For my thirst, they gave me sour wine. Whatever this is, it's not a little kindness. It's a little more suffering. Yeah. Chris.
It's a very small thing, but it just hit me when you were talking about that verse you just looked up about the wheat being buried and then growing into something useful, being a metaphor for his death. Later on, when there's the judgment between the wheat and the tares, that I just realized is following on a metaphor he already started. Everybody who's separated into that group, their death has resulted in planting a seed that grows into something vibrant and more useful.
That is, yeah. I too. I was today days old when I put that together. Thank you. Excellent. Okay. David Olsgaard.
Colossians 1:24.
Yes, sir.
I think there are a couple of other passages like this, but I can't find them. This is the only one, but this will do, I think.
Now I rejoice in my sufferings for your sake, and in my flesh I am filling up what is lacking in Christ's afflictions for the sake of his body, that is the church. I think that's actually pretty unique, but that'll do. Fair enough.
The lacking in Christ, what could possibly be lacking, and how can Paul fulfill that lack of Christ?
That is a great question. On a side note, in my top 5 sermons that I've ever heard, at least as I rank them, John Piper does a sermon on exactly that issue, asking that exact question, called Doing Missions When Dying is Gain. I commend it to you. It is phenomenal. If you just type in your little search engine, Doing Missions When Dying is Gain, I will post it to my Facebook page later today. I've probably heard it a dozen times. It might be where I was in my walk in my life when I heard it, but you were there when we heard it. You, me, and Adam Torrey sat in Chris Powell's. And
it doesn't have doing at the beginning. I think it's just missions.
Okay, I'll find it and post it. But we all listened to it, and we just sat there in stunned silence for 5 minutes, and Adam's like, so what do we do? No, it was boom, like a bomb went off. So the short answer, for those of you who aren't going to check Piper's answer out, is this. There is sufferings of Christ that are yet undone that don't have to do with his atoning sufferings. So the short answer would be, Christ is not here. So actually, go to Philippians. Piper's going to find the answer to what is the phrase, filling up what is lacking. The very similar phrase occurs in Philippians, I think 2. Yeah, Philippians 2, with Epaphroditus. Verse 25, I thought it necessary to send to you Epaphroditus, my brother and fellow worker and fellow soldier, and your messenger and minister to my need. For he has been longing for you all, and has been distressed because you heard that he was ill. Indeed, he was ill to the near death, but God had mercy on him, and not only on him also, lest I should have sorrow upon sorrow. I am more than more eager to send him, therefore, that you may rejoice in seeing me, so that I may be less anxious. So receive him in the Lord with all joy, and honor such men, for he nearly died for the work of Christ, risking his life to complete what was lacking in your service to me. Same exact phrase. So he says, let's take the easier example. What's the situation? Paul is separated from the Philippian church. They sent Epaphroditus with love in the form of money to Paul in prison to minister to Paul. How is Epaphroditus filling up what's lacking? They're not there personally to serve Paul. They're not there personally to get him food. In Roman prison, if people didn't take mercy on you and give you food, you likely starved. So the picture here is Epaphroditus fills up what's lacking because somebody needs to personally do it. Christ's body on earth is bringing the gospel. He's other than like the road to where's Paul? Is it the road to Emmaus? Or is that when Jesus? I get confusing that with Luke when he walks with him, Damascus, Emmaus, and there it is. Okay. So other than Jesus' personal appearance to Paul, he does very little direct evangelism that I'm aware of. I mean, he does as he pleases, but I know of one encounter in Acts. The rest of it is got his body, his hands, his feet going out. And it appears as though the means of the gospel going forward is suffering. If you go to Acts, what does the Lord say to Annas when he strikes Paul blind on the road? He says something interesting. No, it's a great question. Is that Acts 8? Where is it? Where's Paul's conversion in Acts? It's 9. Okay, so 16. Let's start at 14. Acts 9:14. And starting 13. But Ananias answered, Lord, I have heard from many about this. So Ananias hears that this man who was arresting and killing and taking in chains Christians is now proclaiming Christ, and he's a little scared and he's a little dubious. And the Lord wants him to go to Paul. And he says to him, Ananias answered, Lord, I have heard from many about this man, how much evil he has done to your saints at Jerusalem. And here he has authority from the chief priest to bind all who call on your name. But the Lord said to him, Go, for he is a chosen instrument of mine to carry my name before the Gentiles and kings and children of Israel. For I will show him how much he must suffer for the sake of my name. So there is an appointed amount of suffering that Christ has for his people in the advancement of his name. So the way Piper says it is the vehicle for the Great Commission is suffering. That Christ could ordain that his gospel goes forth on gold-plated jets. And he chooses to use the scum of the earth, the refuse, the nothings and the nobodies, and he chooses to use suffering. That's why the proverb, the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. Wherever they try to persecute the church, it grows. And the logic behind that is it's similar to what I was saying when I was saying, how does Jesus glorify his Father by being crucified? He shows the value of his Father. The logic is this way. If one of my children is very thankful to me, and you say, why are you so thankful? And I say, well, why do you love your father? My father gave me a brand new bicycle. The logic of why he would be loyal to me is not hard to see. I give him benefits. That's Satan's line of logic challenging Job's fidelity. Oh, big deal. Job thanks you. You've made him rich. Pfft. Take away his possessions. Take away his belongings. See what he does then. Oh, he still praises God. Well, he's still healthy. And so the whole logic is you see the value someone places on somebody or something, not in what they do when they're blessed, but what they do when they're cursed, what they do when they're suffering. And likewise, it's not nearly as impressive when good things happen and someone gives thanks to God. You know, the guy scores the touchdown and he points his finger up in the sky. Not that that's a bad thing to do. That's not terribly impressive. Watching people grieve, watching people whose children have been swept away in a flood be faithful, that's impressive. who must their God be? And how possibly are they sustained? And how possibly is their faith held together? What is it they have access to that I don't have access? Because if that happened to me, I'd be undone. That shows glory to their Father. So Christ on the cross shows the value of his Father in a way that Christ sitting on a throne doesn't. How valuable? Well, likewise, when the gospel goes forth, in the most cases historically, it's through the suffering of Christ's servants, it's through the suffering of Christians that the gospel goes forth. So that suffering is being accomplished right now on this earth. So it's a different sphere of suffering. The sufferings of Christ are done on the cross. The suffering of Christ's body as the gospel goes forth, oh no, there's more to be done. There's more to be soaked up. There's more to be accomplished. And Paul is converted in part so that I can show you how much someone must suffer for my name's sake. Does that make sense? So it's a separate sphere of Christ's sufferings. The cross sufferings are done. Christ has other sufferings in his body that will be taking place as the gospel goes out. That's my short, mid-sized answer. It's not short, is it? But Chris, and we're at time, so make it.
All right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so this isn't from John Piper, but I think there's another beautiful thing that comes from that type of evangelism, which is that it demonstrates, much like the book of Hosea shows God as, I love you, but you're persecuting me. That's the nature of us being his body as well, that we're demonstrating that the unbeliever is the aggressor being reconciled to somebody who's full of mercy, rather than, God is this snob who wants to be left alone, but if we make ourselves valuable or pitiful enough, maybe he'll see fit to accept us. It's not that kind of a presentation. Right. It's, I wanted to be there for all of you, but you hate me and you abuse me, and I'm willing to put up with that a long time to reach out my hand and pull you in. And that's shown through his people's suffering as part of the gospel.
Have you guys heard of the Moravians? These are people who got converted. They were poor. They wanted to do missions, couldn't figure out how to do it, so they sold themselves into slavery. So imagine you're a slave, in comes a new slave. Hey, how did you become a slave? Did you get captured in battle? I voluntarily sold myself into slavery. Why? It's really important that you hear this message, and this is the only way I could. Would you pay attention to that person? Yes. We're at time. I'll post the Piper thing. Seriously, you could probably do some things better than listen to that, but not many. It's phenomenal. Anyway, God bless, Godspeed, good day. Thank you.